bringing, again, not that this is necessarily conscious, but the gift, it's such an interesting thing in the English language, presence as a gift, the gift of presence. You give presence.
It's not in an aggressive way, though.
No, not at all. It's just, you're just there.
Probably the other aspect, I'm glad you took notes on this.
Yeah.
The other aspect is just being authentic. To me personally, like, I feel like that's probably the biggest aspect of my personality. Like, if it doesn't feel right in my body, it doesn't feel true in my body, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to embody that at all. And I feel like that's the primary thing. And so it's that level of like just true authenticity, like this is who I am, and that was a pretty pivotal moment for me. Like, it was the spark of of really ending my last marriage.
Masculinity is not toxic. Masculinity is medicine. Welcome to the Remasculation Podcast. This show is dedicated to the exploration, celebration, and pursuit of healthy masculinity in the modern world, with a view towards helping end the battle of the sexes and bringing men and women back together by turning the battlefield of the culture wars into a garden once again. I'm your host, Michael Bates, and my mission is to ignite and accelerate the evolution of men everywhere across this planet in our lifetime in service of something greater, our shared humanity. Welcome.
Welcome to the Remasculation Podcast. My name is Michael Bates. Men are not toxic, men are medicine. And I couldn't be more in alignment with that phrase today, sitting across from a dear brother of mine, Vance McMurry. I'm so excited for my audience to meet you and for human beings to get to see that men like you exist, that what the work that I have been, we were just talking about this, Vance, the work that I've been trying to do on myself, the blending together of these two sides of an equation, the soft, sensitive side, the vulnerable side, the side that is open and receiving and receptive, and then the warrior, the strength, the fortitude, the qualities that you usually see one or the other in one person, and you as someone that I really see holding both frames, a real man of medicine. And so we're going to share your introduction today. I'm just gonna say it's been the short time that I met you very soon when I arrived here in Austin, and was immediately struck by the quality and character that you bring, and I'm just really excited to have people get to know you more as the value of what you bring kind of begins to spread a bit in the world. So would you mind introducing yourself in your own words and just sort of letting people know who you are, why you're here, and why we're having this conversation?
Oh, thank you, Michael. You're a kind man. Who am I? Let's talk about worldly stuff for a little bit, right? I'm a Texan by birth. Graduated from West Point in 1992. Was assigned to the 82nd Airborne Division at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. Soon thereafter, got recruited into the intelligence community. I was in the super obscure, right, classified space. And so we did a lot of the human intelligence for like the tier 1 guys, so Delta and other folks. So we would deploy well before they would to kind of develop the human intelligence situation, so we would know, right, how things really worked and who we really need to go after. This was in the mid 90s. So did that for quite a while. Ended up towards the end of that time, got the opportunity to work at the White House. And so worked, started there under President Clinton, ended shortly, a little bit after President Bush started, left the White House physically in February of 2001, took over kind of the same program. It was in the continuity operations space, so continuity of the presidency. So all the kind of 25th Amendment things for the president. So if he gets shot or something happens that would prevent him or her from being president, like that's what we did. And so I took over in February 2001, the same program at the Department of Defense, except it was continuity of the United States military, which was really interesting, right? Because we all know what happened on September 11th. We could spend hours talking about like the inside story that I experienced with that.
Maybe that's another episode.
Yeah. And was that for a few years, and then bounced around in the tech space for quite a while, especially with security clearances. And then right about COVID, kind of dabbled around and went back into kind of the tier 1 special operations world, did some firearms work with some unique neurostimulation technology. That didn't work out so well. And so honestly, I found myself at the end of my second marriage, with a unique opportunity to like reinvent myself, but really kind of tap in with who I am at my core, you know, so that I could show up that way for everybody, you know, my friends, people I care about, my children. I guess that's me. Yeah.
That's you. Yeah, that's you. And it's so wild. Part of that even I hadn't really didn't really know, and some of it I did. And each time you and I hang out, there's a level of depth that I feel like we get to and touch that I really appreciate. And
Thank you.
you know, there's a few topics that we want to really get into today.
Sure.
And ironically, given your background, it's not what I think a lot of people might think it would be.
Yeah.
We're not going to talk about 9/11 on this episode. Well, maybe we will. Though what a thing to be able to talk about, because that's a real passion project for me as a longtime New Yorker. I got to New York the year after it happened.
Oh, yeah.
And I left like a month before COVID. So I kind of, I don't know, I'm a lucky somehow.
Yeah.
Bookended my New York experience with those two big boys. But we're going to talk about relationships. You know, you mentioned it in your intro there. 32 years of marriage.
32 years. Yeah. 3 kids and a grandbaby.
That's something.
2 wives.
That's something, man. As someone that has been engaged, but has not been in that realm, but wants to be in that. The work that I do, Sacred Union, is the name that I have for this idea of helping end the battle of the sexes, helping men and women come back together again, beyond the culture war, beyond what I see as the oldest military tactic in the book, the dividing and conquering of us and setting us apart from each other, othering us in a way that is now making its way into marriages, most marriages now ending in divorce statistically.
Yeah, othering us. That's I like that.
Yeah. And so I thought maybe a good way to begin is the first time we met, which was at one of my events. I just got to Texas, like I've been here for like 2 weeks.
Oh, wow.
In Austin, and got invited to be a part of this collaboration with my now business partners down here, the amazing women of Desire and Fire, formerly Desire and Fire, now hopefully Feminine Reclamation. I think the name's much better. Amy Batuski and Ellie Montgomery, and then Rob Montgomery.
Rob's dope.
Yeah, he is. Her husband and now my business partner in the King's Code, this men's initiatory program that we're doing down here. But yeah, I'd love to just drop into this piece. We're gonna dive in from your perspective, but yeah, why don't you take us into how we first met? And I don't know, who's this weird tall guy coming in? And
I can't remember. Was it you that was on like WhatsApp asking for people, or was it one of Mark? Or?
I think it was me.
It's you, yeah. To be honest with you, it, you know, as I'm reflecting on it, it kind of is how I try to live my life. Recently, like there was something about the ask that just felt right. And so as things have kind of evolved, just, you know, over the last several years for me, there's just things that just feel true in my body. And there was something about that ask that was like, I needed to be there. And it wasn't like that sounds like fun, because I had no idea like what it was, obviously, because I showed up a little overdressed.
It was phenomenal. You should have seen this guy, man, rolling and looking incredible, turning everyone's head.
But thank you. But it just felt like I needed to be there.
Yeah.
And
you did. The room needed you.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah.
And you know, you're an incredible human, and I could tell, but just by how you held that space, right, for us as guys. I mean, there's like 30 or 40 of us.
Yeah.
It was a huge group of dudes.
Yeah.
And there were, you know, for the lack of a better term to get background to the viewers, right? It was all like, I don't know, what do we call aware guys, you know, from the community here in Austin. And so it wasn't, I mean, demographically, probably pretty similar type of people that were somewhat aware of themselves and what was going on. Yeah. And how you held that space was just, I feel like it was, you know, it's how a man should hold space in a relationship: strong, stable, clear. And I respond well to that. You know, and the way I tend to respond to those things is I just lean in.
Yeah.
You know, because I do choose to surround myself with people that, are similar to my character.
You do, man. You do. And, you know, as I've been unfolding this work over the last year, I refer to it as a technology.
Yeah. That's cool.
And because it is, it really responds like a technology, the oldest human technology that I think there is.
Yeah.
You put two people in connection very similar to what we're doing now.
Yeah.
In a prolonged eye gaze, we know now neuroscientifically within about 90 seconds of eye contact, you can do this with complete strangers that don't speak the same language, are diametrically opposed, black, white, gay, straight, doesn't matter.
Yeah.
You put them in connection, and their neurochemistry, once you have had 90 seconds for your bodies to be like, wait, you're not going to kill me, I'm not going to kill you, this is safe, your body just starts releasing oxytocin. You start syncing up. Your nervous system starts to align. It's a profound thing that always restores my faith in humanity, that we're actually going to make it because this is right here.
Yeah.
And what happens when you create a container, and we're going to talk about this because you have a pretty potent philosophy that we're going to come to, where you really view men as the container, women as the medicine, right? Or the masculine as the container, the feminine as the medicine. Something that I see consistently happening in groups, when you frame the group, you set the parameters, you set the container well, you curate it with a degree of understanding, shared understanding of what's allowed, what's not allowed, what's the intention here, what are we actually doing, calling each person in their highest iteration of sort of knowing what they're stepping into. Again, not just some geeks off the street, to quote Young Guns, but the quality of the intention and the attention that is brought in from the field itself then allows the work that's happening to sort of start to stack.
Yeah, I like, let's jump into for a moment, just reflecting on that night. Like, there's some things that I feel, it's just in a lot of relationships, like you really demonstrated more than the technology per se. It's like just being present.
Yeah.
Right. And in that situation, just to give background, right, there were 30 dudes, 30 or so more women or something like that. So it was somewhat 1-to-1, but none of us, for the most part, knew each other. And so there was no baggage.
Yeah.
And so it was really the opportunity for us all just to drop in a deep presence way and awareness that in a relationship, it's rare that people take the time to do that, and that's really powerful in and of itself. And we had no choice but to show up, I feel like, as authentically as we could in that moment.
Yeah.
That's the power.
It is. And it was a 3-hour experience for people that are curious about it. We just did a 3-day experience here in Austin 2 weekends ago, which was a whole other, man, what came through and what I learned from the experience. Because again, I can't say this enough. I'm in this work not because I'm better than you or I know better than anyone listening to this. I'm in this work because I need this work.
Yeah.
I need this work. I have failed at relationship, as much as it sounds like, 32 years of marriage doesn't necessarily mean 32 years of blissful happiness.
Yeah.
But, my experience of my most recent relationship with my now former fiance, what I've discovered in my codependence and the pieces that were out in the way, that there's something about this work showing up to each other. Yeah, it can actually be a lot easier when it's strangers, when it's people you don't know, because there isn't the baggage and the resentments that have stacked up over the course of a relationship. I do a lot of relationship coaching as well. I have an amazing couple that comes to mind that I'm working with right now, who have a child between them and are from different countries and doing their best to live, but the reality that none of us were taught relationship skills. None of us were taught active listening. None of us were taught nonviolent communication. None of us were taught any of the skills that we then expect ourselves and each other to have and be able to bring into a relationship to create this happily ever after myth or whatever it is that we have in our culture. And so to be able to create spaces like this where, what you said, Vance, the gift of presence, what it means. And, we often talk about this in our work or in my work as the masculine gift, the gift of presence, the thing that everyone wants from us as men, our attention, our presence, our time, and what it means to be able to hone and place our attention and our presence on something at a higher and higher level. Why meditation is important, why so many practices that we bring in this work are critical to develop one sense of presence. Right. And I know that you as someone often have that reflected to you as well. I'd love to hear your overall take on that, but also what it is maybe that you've done to be able to hone yourself and how you utilize presence to be able to hold the room, to be able to be the container so that a woman or the feminine can be medicine.
Yeah, great question. If guys like you and I have the natural gift of just sheer size, right?
Yeah. How tall are you, Vance?
How tall am I?
Yeah.
6'1".
6'1".
Yeah.
You're a solid piece of
Thanks.
man over there, though, man.
But that's definitely a part of it, right?
Yeah.
If you were shorter, it'd be difficult
Yeah.
to do that, and I've had this reflected to me so many times. And one of my friends, he shared with me, he's like, "Dude, you're never trying to sell anything to me." And, it was an interesting reflection to me.
Mm.
And I think it comes back to presence because, I don't have an agenda. Like, I want to create space for people that I care about to just really connect,
Yeah.
and be present with them.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's that level of authenticity with people. They feel that.
Yeah. How do you do that? Like for someone listening, and again, you don't have to be 6'1" or 6'5" to hold presence. There's something in the biology that just does that. I get asked directions by people all the frickin' time, especially when I lived in New York and I'm on the street. It's like 3 times a day.
Oh, wow.
There is something, that's going to be a whole episode too. There's statistics around that, taller. I think average height of male CEOs is like 6'2" or something like that. There is something that, that biological thing sets forward, but we can't all control that. So how does one, a man specifically, but also any human being generally, in your sense of things, what creates space? We hear about this like holding space, create presence. What does that mean? How do we do that? And how do you specifically bring your gift of that to the people that you serve?
Well, my formula for it,
Yeah.
I just show up. I mean, that's
So step one, showing up.
I feel I mean, we're gonna unravel this as we
Build
go.
it.
Yeah. And there's a level I feel like of trust in the situation.
Yeah.
Like I remember the first ceremony my partner and I co-facilitated together, right? And a couple other friends, a couple other ladies that we all did it together. But they asked me to co-facilitate, and I was like, "That's a big step."
Yeah.
And that was really all of the discussion. And so I trusted Mary in this, and I just showed up. And the container we have is unique. There's a lot of music and there's just a lot of that, which not my jam.
Yeah.
And so I just showed up, and I did it in a way that was just, I didn't compete for attention, and that's a reflection from some of the people that sat with us that night.
Yeah.
I didn't compete with like the women that we were all working together with. And generally I don't do that. I mean, you and I've been in a lot of group settings and events, and I'm not that kind of person. I don't feel the need to like
Prove something.
starve. Yeah. I don't starve for people's attention. And I tend to like follow my heart for people that I want to talk to.
Yeah.
Or I feel, well, it's not a good word, that I feel inspired to talk to.
Yeah.
And the biggest thing is for me personally, and what I personally kind of like tie that down to is just creating a space that I can love people unconditionally.
How do you creating a space where you can love people unconditionally? Is that a physical external space? Is that an internal space?
Yeah. I mean, for me, it's internal.
Yeah.
Right.
What does that look like?
Like,
Because again, right, you ex-military,
yeah.
handsome dude, 6'1", right?
Yeah.
You come across as I think pretty intimidating.
Yeah. I've
A
struggled.
lot of men, right? Men don't cry. The emotional space. We were talking about this earlier. Men tend to show up on one side of the equation, the sort of Jocko Willink, David Goggins type of dudes, or the sensitive new age guy kind of thing. It's rare to see someone that has both of those together. So why I wanted to have you on the show is you strike me as an anomaly, as someone that I aspire towards, and the type of man that I'm trying to myself work to become and help other men become, the balancing of that equation. So what does that look like as someone, walking down the street probably would be pretty struck by, okay, wow, opening my heart. How do I do that? And how do you create that internal space of heart opening while holding the just awareness and tracking of the external space and the external field?
Yeah. It's a really great question. I don't have like a super clear answer about it. For me personally, like I'm trying to reflect on just times. I really feel like I'm trying to like tie in some of the concepts here,
Yeah.
and probably it'll help make sense on a bigger perspective. But
Yeah.
I'm not in a place of want in my life. I don't make a ton of money. I have incredibly rich relationships, especially my partner. And but all my relationships are really deep, they're really rich. And I do that. Yeah, I don't have a solid answer. I mean, it just feels like, same reason you and I connect, right? There's just something that feels right about it and that feels true about it.
Yeah.
I never know the reason why. I just trust in that sensation of really what true feels like in my body.
Yeah.
And you've seen me at get-togethers. It's real. Like, I'm not that guy that's like bouncing around.
No, you're the one standing stoically, sort of in the corner or on the couch, like as just this electromagnetic field.
Yeah.
Honestly, I see that, and I think again, there's something. I wanted to have you on the show, not to blow smoke up your ass or my ass or anyone's ass here, but because you're onto something, as I see it, and there's a quality that I see people talking about in the men's workspace, in the conscious community, whatever that even means anymore, of holding space, being present, the masculine as an archetype, and what I see you and what I hear you talking about, right? Just showing up, not competing, being able to open your heart, and then you're not in a place of want. So you're not trying to control anything. You're not needing things to go a certain way. You're not fixing.
Yeah.
You're not needing to change anything that's happening in the environment. You're just in the environment, aware, awake, present, and bringing, again, not that this is necessarily conscious, but the gift, it's such an interesting thing in the English language, presence as a gift, the gift of presence. You give presence.
Yeah, it's not in an aggressive way, though.
No, not at all.
Yeah.
It's just, you're just there.
Yeah. And probably the other aspect, I'm glad you took notes on this.
Yeah.
The other aspect is just being authentic, and that, to me personally, like, I feel like that's probably the biggest aspect of my personality. Like, if it doesn't feel right in my body, it doesn't feel true in my body, like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to say it. I'm not going to embody that at all. And so that's, to me, like, I feel like that's the primary thing. And so it's that level of like just true authenticity. Like, this is who I am, and that was a pretty pivotal moment for me. Like, it was the spark of of really ending my last marriage.
Yeah.
It was like I shared with you before we just got started. Like, I remember like the moment that like that was just lifted off of me once it was complete. And like the reflection I got from so many friends was just like how I just felt more open and more, more open.
Yeah.
Probably the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And as I kind of like went down that road of like radical authenticity of myself, of just like, it was just the reflections I kept getting from either people I was dating or friends or whatever, was just like really surprising to me, of like all of what you just talked about. And so, I think it speaks to like surrounding yourself with people that, are aware, I guess, to some way, that can be like, oh, wow, this is really amazing about you, or this is not.
I'm thinking of the younger men that are listening to this, because again, you've got some age on you. I've got some age on me. We've had some time to become who we are.
Yeah.
And so, the process of just so much of the work that I'm doing, the programs that I'm building, are for me when I was a teenager, are for me in my 20s, the programs I didn't have, the teachers I didn't have, the mentorship and the initiation and all these things that just weren't there, that I feel so passionate about passing back and sharing.
Yeah. Totally.
How do younger men be authentic, right? This fifth piece of the technology of presence, let's call it. Number one, just showing up. Number two, not competing. Number three, learning to open your heart, sharing, not giving it necessarily, which is a shout out to Suzanne if you're listening. Not being in a place of want in your life, and then being authentic. If you're still becoming who you are, if you are still sort of maybe in work where you feel like you have to compete, or you're just, in the tech space or any of these other spaces where it seems like competition is the nature of the game. How do you employ these as a young man? Or is it just something that guys have to wait for? You just have to kind of earn your stripes.
Yeah. I would say enjoy the ride.
Yeah.
That's the biggest thing.
Yeah.
And the reason I would say that is especially coming back to the relationship piece, right? Like I remember it was pretty early on in Mary and Maya's relationship. And I remember looking her in the face and I was like, I just had the realization, like, just such a deep sense of gratitude to like be chosen by her. And I shared, and I say this not often, fairly regularly, like,
Yeah.
man, I'd fuck it all up again just to be that guy for her, because there's like so many times that I realize, oh, okay, this is why I had to be married for 32 years.
Yeah.
Why I had to like go through all those things, right? To create.
Yeah. I love that, brother, because that is what I would want to say back. If I could get in a time machine and go back and have 5 minutes with my 15-year-old self, it's like, brother, fuck up, make mistakes. That's how you become the man you're going to be.
Yeah.
And to the degree that I've been afraid of doing that, my perfectionism, I think I have to get it right. I have to be the guy. If I'm gonna, who the fuck am I to lead men's work, Vance? I've got to be this guy. Like when I was starting off, it was a big thing. And there's what you said reminded me of something that Rob Montgomery, my collaborator in the King's Code, says all the time that really struck me. There is a place to get to. Like, yes, there'll always be work to be done. You'll always still be growing, but there is a place. I think that's what you and I are both pointing to. You feeling like you're pretty solidly who you are. You're there. Can you be better? Yes. But there is a place to get to. Keep going, keep working, keep struggling, keep failing, fail big, fail hard, fail often, and just keep going, not take it personally.
Yeah, I would fail. I mean, we hear that a lot, right? Yeah, fail a lot, fail often. I feel like
maybe there's a reframe.
Yeah, I feel like the reframe is fear is courage being revealed.
Fear is courage being revealed.
Yeah. Courage and bravery is not the absence of fear. They all exist together. And it's our choice in those moments to persist and to move on, fail and stuff. But yeah, fear is courage being revealed. I mean, I've done crazy stuff, man.
Yeah.
And, there's always fear. It's just a matter of like, oh, I got to keep moving, type of thing.
It's so ironic and interesting that you're bringing that up. I just got off the phone. I have, as I was talking to you, I'm currently in a 12-step program for codependence. And I'm not about the anonymity. I want to share because it's been such a revelation for me, this program. And I want as many people to come to it as they can. I was just on a call with my sponsor today.
Oh.
And he said, my fear, what did he say? When you get out of fear, clarity necessarily appears on the other side of that.
Yeah.
And that doesn't mean that it's going to appear in the way that I think it will.
Yeah.
But for me, I think, and for so many people, like the fear has kept me from doing the thing. I'm afraid of what it's going to mean or how people are going to think of me. That's kind of what's at the core of codependence. Like I have habitually not said things or done things in my life that I knew I could, should, or would have done if I'd been able to do it. And essentially the fear of being exposed or abandoned or XYZ kept me from doing that, often in an unconscious way that I wasn't even aware of. But there's something about this that feels resonant of just my own commitment now to be with the fear and be able to, the reframe that you brought of failure, right? This piece. And I think that is what I'm coming to, that what I've framed as failure in my life, looking back on my relationships, looking back on the struggles I've had, looking back on the failures from the place that there is to get to that I'm arriving at now, suddenly none of them are failures. They're literally the building blocks of the structure that is emerging as the skyscraper of my life.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving through the fear, you're saying.
Yeah.
As opposed to being out of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and the way to do that, like I think so much of why I failed to move through fear in my life is I was trying to do it by myself. I was trying to do it alone. I was trying to grit my teeth and not expose myself or not be less of a man. And again, a lot of it was just unconscious. I think I just learned that. I think in our culture, so much of our culture, this sort of superhero culture where we're at right now as men, you're supposed to almost the romanticized Americana of the rugged cowboy type who does it on his own. It's like, that's not actually how to do this. We need each other. We need to surround ourselves with a brotherhood of men that we can truly trust, that we can share with, be vulnerable with, be in relationship to. crack skulls and go to the gym with, but also be able to get to the bottom of what does it mean as a man to open my heart to a brother, to my partner, to the world, to my work, to my purpose, to my mission, to why I'm here on this planet. Because I don't know that you get to that deeper purpose that does fill you with the sense of approval and validation that as men we're often seeking from women or seeking from external sources, the fancy car, the nice house, these external derivations of value. That's, I mean, I'm on a fucking riff here, let's say, but you inspire me, brother. Like there's something here, right? There's something here.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like personally, like if you want those things or if you want to compete in that space, like do it.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, there's an immense fear of failure, especially with guys.
Yeah.
With everybody, to be honest. But
Sure.
there is.
So with guys, it's pronounced and
Yeah. And I would go back to like, man, fucking enjoy the ride.
yeah.
You know, I mean, there's at my age, you know, you've got quite a bit of clarity because you realize there's a lot less ahead than there is behind. And in our 20s, 30s, 40s, even, you don't realize that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. I feel grateful for what I've been able to come to at 45, you know, at the age that I am, and less concerned about the regrets of the quote unquote failures and more of like, ooh, if this is actually fuel for the fire of what's coming. And, you know, any good movie, especially like a good hero movie, like the hero's getting his ass kicked for the whole movie until the end when he finally defeats the villain and wins. And if you turn off the movie 3/4 of the way through, you think it's a tragedy. You think he loses because he's losing. He's getting his ass kicked. So it's like, there is something about that, right? Like not being able to see around corners and not being able to know your fates, but just, you know, keep going.
Yeah. And the other aspect I know that was big for me, especially in the relationship piece, was realizing that I created it all and owning that. And, you know, I probably still haven't completely owned it all, but even the concept of that, I mean, that was one of the things of my first plant medicine experience. That was one of my intention, was like to understand my role in both my marriages. And I remember one of the big things was, and I probably said it for a very long time during the ceremony, was I created it all. I created it all.
Yeah.
And I started going into like, what does that mean? Like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Like, and it was all my choices, it was all my actions, it was all the things I said, all the things that, as opposed to like doing it because she wanted it or doing it because they wanted it, you know. And I feel it comes back to this point of authenticity of like, rather than doing it because somebody else wants it, like, do it because you're inspired by it, do it because you're passionate about it. And that's, for me, like, that's what I want somebody to be attracted to, is who I am at my core versus like who I'm trying to be.
Yeah. That we could center that here in a big way. Yeah. The degree to which it's more attractive to feel someone who's coming from their authenticity than
that is attractive.
Yeah. It is, right?
Yeah.
It is. It really is. Like you see it across the board. It doesn't matter what a person looks like or what they're even talking about. When there's something sincere that's coming through, it's like it is attractive. Yeah. It's shiny.
Yeah. And I, through my journey, man, like I think I've shared with you, like I have a little bit of like synesthesia, so I can see people's energy.
Yeah.
And
a mystical, magical man. See who you are.
And so it's interesting, like it's the energy of someone that is authentic, true to themselves, is really bright and really colorful. And it's, you know, somewhat probably chakra based. I mean, it's a lot of different colors.
But it's attractive. It's magnetic.
It
draws you in.
The energy of somebody that is not is very dark, and it's very gray, and it's very dull, and it's not bright. And so, I mean, for me, I see that, and that's part of my experience, but we all feel it, you know? And so there's some element probably of like, oh, she's beautiful, or she's this, or she's that, and I value that, and so I'm going to go to that versus like really seeing the true being that's before you.
Yeah, which is big. And I think that is connected somehow to the piece you mentioned about ownership.
Yeah.
and what it means to actually have the revelation, whether through plant medicine, whether through a humbling experience. In the men's work, rites of passage, the necessity of the transition from boy to man psychologically is the death of the hero. The necessary thing that comes of being humbled and then having to ask for help.
Yeah.
And that from that, you learn that, what happened to you when you were younger isn't your fault. It's not your fault.
Yeah.
Some of it might be, but, a little kid gets abused or something. It's like, that's not your fault. But now as an adult, the power that comes from taking responsibility for that either way, and the way it's impacted you and the choices that you're making because of it, and what you can do to actually bring it to light.
Yeah.
The wound belies the gift. Your greatest gift comes from the core of your greatest wound. That's a universal teaching and transmission. And so the power that then can come, and the way you can hunt for power, build your power by understanding the responsibility, that sort of Jordan Peterson-esque sort of thing that's in the culture of like taking responsibility for what you can, cleaning your own room before you try to go out and change the world, polishing your own mirror, working on your own chakra system before you start trying to tell other people how to do that. And so
as we're like talking through this, I'm kind of asking myself that question like you did earlier, like how, as a young guy or something, I was like, how can you be aware of that? And I feel like even like the discussions that I've had with friends around this, like there's an element of like just taking things so personal, right? As opposed to like having maybe some distance from the thing, and realizes, oh, well, if I expected you to respond a certain way and you're responding differently, like what's my role in that?
Yeah.
And using that to like have a little introspection around the thing.
Yeah.
Right.
I think one of the greatest lessons I got from David Data was, I'll probably paraphrase it, but learning how to not take things personal, even when it's personal.
Yeah.
Like, even if it's your woman's, you did something and now your woman's pissed at you. It's like, yes. And there's something there about the way her dad used to do a similar thing. There's something there in her frame or their frame around whatever that piece is, it's now catching in them.
Yeah.
And so, how do you not take it personally? How do you, and especially when it feels personal or it's deeply personal, someone's coming at you in that field, how do you do the work? I mean, this is high level stuff. How do you do the work of sort of separating back into witness, into that sort of compassionate, energetic, versus getting pulled into the experience that the other person is having?
Yeah. Can we jump into that for a minute? Well, it's one of the things that's really fascinating to me about, I'm going to say it again, my partner, Mary, but
Hi, Mary.
Yeah.
She's magic.
Yes, she is. And because we have a recent situation like that, and it was one of those things where I was just really triggered by it, and I'm grateful to be in the space to where I have that space to like be triggered about it, and I said some not nice things, not to her, but about this situation.
Yeah.
And unlike previous relationships, to where like she didn't respond in a hurtful way. And it's one of the really magical things that I've tried to share with other people, is like she is a master of, it's not know if it's a reframe, it's probably like a catchphrase that we've heard a lot, but she does reframe. And so, but like this particular thing, she's super inquisitive as to like why I want to make sure to use the right words, super inquisitive of like understanding the depth of my response,
Yeah.
And so I remember after we had some back and forth, and it was, and we weren't arguing, but it was a really fascinating conversation. And so she like reflected back to me of, it really sounds like you have this, she probably didn't use the word wound, but I'll use that word. She says, something like it sounds like you have this like wound about being mischaracterized. And that was really the crux of what was going on, and it was like a laser beam of truth, and so her medicine is like really just spot on and so many things.
Yeah.
But it was, and I share that because I would love for like that technology to be released,
Mm-hmm.
you know, into the world. And because you may probably have clients and people who are listening have always done it. And so one person gets triggered, the other, and it's just this like tit for tat, back and forth, whatever.
Yeah, the trigger trap.
Yeah, the trigger trap. Been there, done it. Did it for
We've all done it.
3 decades.
But that's what this work is about.
Yeah,
is about being able to do our own work. You know, this is this idea again from the initiation work that I did in indigenous culture, and that's for all of us. You can go back far enough.
Sure.
The men's rights and women's rights happened when we were adolescents.
Yeah.
And we became men and became women through the men and women of our tribe and our collective and our community. And then we were allowed to date.
Yeah.
Then we were allowed to marry. Then we were allowed to do all these things. And so there's this idea that we haven't become sovereign unto ourselves. We haven't done our own respective men's and women's work to arrive and land at a place where, I can get triggered. And instead of just responding and reacting, I can, this is that thing that triggers my beloved.
Yeah.
And that, of course, triggers the thing in me that is related to the thing in him, which is why we were attracted together in the first place.
Yeah.
Because I think there's this idea that relationships are supposed to be this happily ever after thing, but I really view them as like they're vessels. They're the ship of relating. It's a relationship. It's a vessel. It's a vessel for spiritual transformation. That's what it actually is.
Yeah.
But we're looking at it as this like romantic thing, this ideal partnership but if you haven't done your own work to become the ideal partner that you want them to be, you're by necessity going to trigger each other. The relationship is going to become what most relationships become, which is this trigger trap nightmare where the thing where, oh my God, I've known this person forever. It's like, you're my soulmate, you're my twin flame. It's like, you have known them forever. They're your mom, they're your dad. They're that pattern is built into them because you always attract your reciprocal.
And then a week later, it's over.
Right. Well, because you attracted the medicine to help you heal the biggest challenge in your system that you haven't yourself been able to meet yet.
Yeah.
And so if you understand that that's what is that's not the bug in the system, that's the design of relationship is to trigger the fuck out of you.
Yeah.
And if you have the skills to be able to get triggered together, and then one of you is able to climb out of the maelstrom and be like, hey, time out.
Yeah.
Or like, oh, wow, I see you're really triggered and you just said a really hurtful thing to me and I love you. And I know that you're in it and I'm here with you. And this is the thing. Wow. How do we do that? And how do we get help? Because this is a thing that I'm really passionate about. And I want to give you a chance to respond. But, I really see you and Mary as a power couple in the community, because you guys are. You're holding a big channel and you guys have a bit of the elder energy. Not that you're that old, but just in the so much of our community is sort of a bit younger, but that you guys are holding something really powerful. My former partner and I held a similar thing in Colorado when I was living there with her. And the thing I regret most about that relationship, like after the breakup, the revelation I had at Burning Man this year, on the 1-year anniversary of us splitting up, at Burning Man, at the camp where we met and this whole thing, was that, oh my gosh, like I teach this work. And I didn't realize the need to reach out when we were really struggling, the need to open it up and reach out and be like, Vance, brother, we're in trouble and we need some outside insight. Will you be my advocate? She gets to have her advocate, like her best friend or something. And then we bring in the community who know and love both of us, and we have a council. And so you have like your guy that's in your corner. She's got her girl that's in her corner. Then there's the collective that know and love both of you that are a stand for our couples, so that our couples can breathe and our couples can be held by the relational field of the whole collective, because we need our power couples. We need those, what would you call it? Conduits for what's possible, because we just don't know what's possible in relationship because we haven't seen it. None of us have grown up with it. We've been it's like anti-educated on relationship because of what we grew up with our parents, and our parents being taught nothing from their parents, and them being taught nothing from their parents, and they're on their own and they don't have community around them to support them and help raise the kids. And so it's just them. And now we're all working 2 jobs and trying to make it and wondering why we're getting divorced when there's all this pressure and we're putting all this intensity on each other. You now have to be not only my partner, but like my therapist and my mom and like my,
it is interesting you brought that up, right? Women have that.
Women
have that person. It seems like it's unusual for us. Like it's I've noticed that with how like Mary processes things. And so she has, a core group of friends that she goes to, and she'll process things with them and they reflect things back to her, right? To feel like help her, and I'm sure they all do the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah. Well, that's
Yeah.
why I'm so passionate about my men's work, and men's work is the primary thing for me, because it's like I see this, right? It's like so many of our sisters, and it's in the nature of the feminine to be more, we're the hunters, they're the gatherers. The sitting around and talking is something that I think women just do, or the feminine does more so than men. Not that men don't or can't, or the masculine, feminine, blah, blah, blah. But like that there's something about it in the nature of the female experience where there is more of a propensity towards empathy and connection and those things. And so, yeah, the necessity of men doing that also so that we can have that, I think, it's really wild, man. We did this Sacred Union 3-day retreat 2 weekends ago. We had about almost 150 people, including our back of house staff and everybody there. Like I think 130 participants, something like that. It was wild. And leading up to the workshop, we opened up a WhatsApp channel and we had everybody just put in like, what are you struggling with Sacred Union? What are you struggling with men and women? What are the problems between us as you see it? We kept it really broad. My collaborators, they took everyone's response, put it into ChatGPT.
Oh yeah.
ChatGPT spits out 2 sentences. I hope I'm getting this right.
No way.
2 sentences. Women don't trust men, period. First sentence.
No way.
Second sentence, men don't trust men, comma, or themselves, period.
Ooh, wow.
And that was the whole thing. And I think that's kind of the whole thing.
You should screenshot that.
Seriously, we're talking about it, and we're going to do a podcast, and we're going to talk more about this because this is the work, right?
Yeah.
This is what's happening in the field. This is not my work or your work. It's all of our work. It belongs to all of us. This is a human technology that lives in every single human being, as I see it. Really.
Yeah, it's interesting. Like why? Because I haven't gotten a reflection like that around like not being trusted.
Well, I think because you're pretty trustable.
Yeah, but I mean, it's a choice I make, right?
It is. And this is an interesting thing. You're training, right? Going through the military. I mean, do or die, quite literally. If you were trained to show up in a way where if you don't show up correct, not just you, but you and your boys get fucking killed.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, it's relationships, whether they're male or female, I feel like are different.
For sure.
I mean, because it's, I feel like it probably comes back to,
Yeah.
So, I mean, there's 2 concepts that are going to come out of this, right? Being authentic.
Yep.
And so like women feel that.
They do. They're designed to feel that in us. They have to.
And so, but there's probably something going on of like, oh, he's hot. I'll take it from our perspective. Oh, she's hot, but there's some other vibe of like, something's not quite right, but she's fucking hot.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go for this.
Yeah.
Right.
Our biology
Yeah.
predisposed to propagate.
Still don't trust it.
Right.
But it's great.
Yeah.
I'm going to go
It's
for
hot. I'm going to go for
it.
it.
Yeah. And so it's that level of authenticity of like,
Male monkey mind.
something doesn't
mind.
feel quite right. I'm not going to fully trust this. I'm not going to fully lean in.
Yeah.
All that stuff. I mean, this is a conversation I've had quite a few times, which is like, okay, if you're going to be attracted to me, like I'm going to be me as opposed to this person over here or this thing over here that I think you want me to be, because that's what creates, in my opinion, the mistrust and it's not attractive.
Yeah.
And it creates mistrust, right? And women are unaware of it and guys kind of like sack it away and then the relationship blows up and that's the formula, And so if it's dudes being true to themselves and
and that's it, right? Men don't trust men or themselves. And what is that? How do men trust themselves? Why don't men trust themselves? This is, part of why this podcast is what it is. Remasculation, right? It's the story of my journey of recognizing my own, that me taking responsibility for like my culpability and going along with these ideas of patriarchy and toxic masculinity that have emerged in the last 60 or 70 years, quite correctly, to point at something that's been off in the field.
It's probably it just kind of came in as I was asking myself this, it's probably because, dude, we've been taught like that's bad.
Yeah.
Right. And it just like, that's probably the imbalance in masculine feminine relationships though too, is that right, when the masculine is out of his presence and being more in the feminine, it creates that imbalance in the relationship, which just probably innately not trustworthy, because the woman is like,
You're bigger, you're stronger, you're more powerful as a man. If you're not present, not aware, the impact is greater. Who's watching our backs if it's not you?
Yep.
If you're not aware of the impact that you're having.
So she has to step into that space then.
Right. Which is, I think,
that's
what we've pushed our
what
sisters.
she's been told to do.
Yeah. Well, and I think it's, and been encouraged to do too. As feminism has come in, again, rightly so, I think, to create opportunities for women, there's also the shadows of feminism that we're now experiencing, or who's in what role, what's happening. It's a beautiful thing, but it's wild. I want to talk about this. I haven't talked about it publicly yet. I've just been kind of sitting on it for a while, but men don't trust men or themselves, right? Where did that start? Like, where does that, I mean, I think we've just gotten to a nut of it, right? And maybe it can be that simple on the simple level, but I think of it in like, because I'm a history guy.
Yeah.
And, my ancestors were conquered and enslaved by the Romans 2,000 years ago when Caesar came through the Gallic and Britain and annihilated and literally wiped out the entire Celtic race almost. And that's happened to all of us at some point. Right? History is long and broad and bloody enough where at some point, our people, your people, whoever you are who's listening, regardless of your skin color, your ethnicity, where you come from, we've all been invaded and annihilated at some degree. And what that's like for a man, right? Your job is to protect your people, to protect your women and children. And at some point, all of our lines were broken. The enemy came through, killed us, took our women, raped our women, took our, that's happened, I think, to all of us in the collective field. Or we were those soldiers in the trenches in the First World War who are our fathers, our representations for the masculine, and dad sent us over the fucking line to get mowed down by machine guns in the Second World War and all the war and death that has happened for men at the hands of other men, but ordered into it by other men. It's like there's a bigger thing in the field that I'm feeling too of like the mistrust of like Vietnam, or like what I hear so many of the guys that I know who went to Afghanistan, who have gone to these places and been asked to do horrible things or seen horrible things in service of what they believe to be right. And then afterwards just being like, oh my God, like I think why so many of our military brothers and sisters take their lives, right? Something has happened that they can't contend with, and that creates a trauma response in their system. So it's like I know this is broad. I know I'm pitching this kind of in a big way.
Yeah.
But I want to just kind of put that out. I'm curious, for the listeners out there, if this resonates or if this lands for you guys too. But bring it back.
Yeah, super fascinating concept. I mean, definitely that vibration is out there, right?
Yeah.
Especially whether it's, being in Afghanistan or Iraq, or if it's the last several years of just like what some of us feel like has been done to us, right?
Yeah.
And I only have myself in this. And so I feel like for me, like I've been fortunate enough to be in situations to where it was just me, and my life depended on me. And it was my choice in those moments to protect myself and defend myself. And if I didn't, I wouldn't be here.
Yeah.
And that's a unique gift, and it was, I really didn't really appreciate that until I was older. Like I carried a couple decades worth of like fear and regret and remorse around those situations. And when I realized like those moments were still in divine purpose.
Yeah.
Not only for me, but for the other people on the receiving end of that. And I've had the opportunity to be shown those type of things.
Wow.
And so it's
wow.
So I mean, I've developed immense trust in myself because of those things. And I think it was maybe you and I were talking about it. Like, isn't it one of the like Indian tribes, they like when a young boy turns 13, they like give him a spear and they like don't come back until you kill something type of thing. Did you say something? All right.
There's a lot of cultures that have done similar things. I know part of the Agoge in Sparta.
Oh, really?
The training for the young kids. Yeah, I think the final test was you get a spear and you go out and you do. Well, yeah, it's a whole thing. Yeah, but that'd be badass. That would be badass. Jesus, let's do that. Rob, if you're listening, we'll put that in the King's Code for the next cohort.
Property, stock it up.
Yeah, I know. So
use your spear, dude.
Yeah, use your spear. Just do it.
Don't come back.
Just do it. So this is it, right? It's like, this is what I'm interested in. I'm not, okay, there's problems, right? Women don't trust men. Men don't trust men or themselves. Women, I know
You're
too,
probably
don't
vibrating
trust.
So as I'm thinking about
Well,
it,
that's it,
I
right?
don't
And so
trust
my
myself.
curiosity is more about, okay, what do we do about it? I'm an eternal optimist, man. I'm gonna die that way. I don't care what happens. Like, I believe in us. I really do. I believe that there's something here that's happening for the benefit of all of us.
So how about so if I walk into a relationship and I don't trust myself, what am I attracting?
Exactly, Vance. So I think that's it. And the map that you've helped us build here today, this map to presence, or this map to being trustable as a man. David, again, back to one of my mentors, David Data, he says, women want to feel loved by men. Men want to feel trusted by women. That being trustable is sort of the ultimate metric for the masculine. It's an interesting thing. I found it useful. What is that map to being trustable, to trusting ourselves, to the ultimate test of feeling trustable to others? And again, the ultimate reflection of that is the people you're attracting in your life, the circumstances, the situations, right? So we've got per Vance, right? Number one, just show up.
Yeah.
Just show up to the game, man. Just say, no, I'm here. I know I've got work to do, but let's work. Number one, love that. Number two, you didn't compete, or you
don't feel the need.
You don't feel the need to compete, and you did say that over the course of the podcast, right? And there's circumstances where you do need to compete, or if you feel like you need to, especially for young men, I think getting in the scrum and mixing it up, right? It's like you want to make a name for yourself. There's healthy levels of competition, and then there's healthy competition.
In these moments,
Yep.
Or at a party or a gathering or whatever, like how many dudes come up to you like, guess what I'm doing?
Yeah.
Guess what I'm selling now? Guess like
a lot.
Yeah, I don't
all the time.
I don't do any of that, and I don't.
I know, Vance. That's why I'm talking to you and not them. Yeah. So in the essence of being present, of being trustable in that moment, not needing to compete, just showing up as you are. The open heart, being in a place of or not in a place of want. So you don't want anything to happen. You're kind of just open to what's there.
Yeah.
Being authentic. Acting authentically, acting from your own sense of living truth. The opening your heart piece. How do you do that? How do you open your heart, Vance? And you personally, like, right? Just speaking from our own experience. And I think that's all we can ever do, right? Is try to live from our own experience and share from our own experience.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot, it comes back to like my first ceremony. And it was just being in the presence of many of us have been there, right? But just being in the presence of just immense love, like it just bathes your whole being, like every cell.
Yeah.
And like that's one of those moments I try to just carry on with. And one of the things that came out of that was learning to love unconditionally. And it's especially in a masculine feminine relationship, that's hard to like be out of the place of want and just remain in the place of gratitude to like, be able to love that deeply. Yeah. Does that make sense? Yeah.
I think so. Was at a tobacco ceremony the other night with my dear brother, Jordan Mockingbird, who holds powerful medicine space here in Austin and around the place. With tree diets as well as tobacco. It's sober medicine. It's Amazonian tobacco, mapacho, and drank it as a tea. It's a purgative.
Yeah.
And really speaking to it as the humbling, when you're vomiting, you're humbled. You have no choice. You're brought to your knees, you're weakened, your body opens and you're releasing something. And there was something that happened in that experience just on Monday. I mean, was it a Monday? No, it was Tuesday. Jeez.
Yeah.
It was a couple days ago. I'm on my own journey to reopening my heart, or as one of my mentors, Justin Patrick Pierce, would say, you can't actually close your heart, but you can put stuff in between your heart and the world. And so examining, all the things that I've put in the way, and my goodness, man, like still healing from that past relationship that I mentioned. Yeah, I think that, the amorphousness of how do you open your heart? I remember being so mad at my mom growing up because she would always just tell me, just be yourself, Michael, just be yourself. And I get so mad. I'm like, what does that mean? Yeah. How do I just be myself? If I don't know myself, how do I be myself? And it's such a profound teaching in and of itself. But yeah, I am in that process of whether it's removing the obstacle or reopening my own heart. It's something I'm very much in the process of myself. And for anyone listening or wondering how to do that for yourself, I think you'll know in a way. Like there'll be an instinct there, whether it's,
Yeah. Do you feel like that being yourself thing is always the same to like say, oh, this is self, or is it like change?
That's a great question, man. I would say that that's been my fundamental quandary for me personally. I think there's a level of that we all are in a dance around.
Yeah.
But for me specifically, my nature of my wounding, being a chameleon, being depending on who I'm around, I would change. There would be kind of a core me that I'm me when I'm by myself, but then being able to change. It's what made me a great actor when I was an actor in New York, and sort of in that portion of my life, and made me a great jazz musician. It's made me good at the facilitation work and being in that kind of amorphous field. I don't have synesthesia, but I can feel people.
Yeah, okay.
And I adapt myself to them. And I think it makes me a good coach, but it also makes me not good in the sense of what I'm really learning now is what is my unfuckwithable through line of this is the place I've arrived at, and this is who I am, and this is what I am, and I'm actually not going to change this for anyone. And I think that's what's at the end of my codependent journey is codependence, right? For me, it's putting all of myself and my validation through other people, making other people my God or my higher power, as they talk about in the program.
So what's keeping you from being that person like now?
Me, Vance, me. It's me, right? It's like you said at the beginning. It's the recognition of I've done this to myself.
What would create that moment? Like, what would you need in order to like identify as that right now? Like, what would you need in order to do that?
As the fullness of myself?
Yeah.
Right here live on this podcast?
I mean, as you're like feeling into that, the reason I ask is like, but it's okay to be you right now. Like I don't feel like it has to be the same thing tomorrow, next minute, or whatever. Like, I mean, there's an essence of it, sure.
Yeah, my exploration of it has unveiled a fundamental wound of somewhere when I was younger, it wasn't okay, or I believed it wasn't okay to be myself as I was, or I wasn't enough as I was, and so I needed to be more. I needed to alter that. So again, the wound has become. I've learned how to make a gift out of it. But now I'm also learning where it's cost me and where it's still been running my life in a way. And so, yeah, I'm in a very real process moment to moment right now of just like opening up. It's like something is actively shifting in my body. I feel it in my chest cavity. I feel it in my center of gravity. Yeah. I felt it during my deadlift yesterday in the gym. Like there's something emerging. I got emotional after doing a big lift. It was an interesting thing to experience, but it's me. And that's, I think, the core realization of the liberation that's possible. I'm the one that's been incarcerating myself all my life. I've been the one creating the experience of, the opposite of sacred union, or the opposite of...
What would it take for you to stop doing that?
These are very good questions, Vance. I love the way this is going. Usually I'm asking all the questions. This feels great. It's like, what would I need to do that? I think it is. It's what we've been talking about today. It's what you embody in a lot of ways, I think. An accepting of myself as I am. An accepting of all of it as meaningful and right, and including the quote unquote failures as just, again, part of the whole systemic becoming of me, of what I am now. And am I willing to get out of the way? And am I willing to let my life be driven by something beyond my own selfish, myopic view of how things could and should be, beyond my control or my desire or seeking to control people, circumstances, situations, whatever.
I accept you just as you are.
I feel that.
Yeah.
I do. And again, I think that's one of your gifts.
Yeah, thank you.
And it's the emotion is right there for me now, because I have not accepted me as I am, Vance. I've been the gatekeeper of the whole thing, like you experienced in that first medicine journey you talked about. I've heard that, man. I've had those medicine journeys. I'm on medicine. It's crystal clear. Or in moments of meditation or pockets of prayer, or even with music, whatever conduit I'm utilizing to access the numinous space between things, I'll find it, man. And then back to the world, back to the thing. And so I think I'm arriving at a place now where that doesn't go away. Yeah. And that's it, right? If it is okay and it's all okay, I think maybe that's the,
so maybe the question is like, how does one love oneself unconditionally?
Yeah. While still holding oneself to a degree of accountability, impeccability, trustability.
I don't feel like that's important, right? If you're on that path to like figure it out, right? That's authenticity, is loving oneself
unconditionally. Yeah. Yeah. I think I've been focusing largely on the other side of that, the conditional love.
Yeah.
Which feels real as well. Like, I love you and quit being a jackass. It makes me think of like mom and dad, like the mother, unconditional love, the father being kind of the conditional, like, listen, son, I love you, but we need to talk about why you got a D on your report card. You're great and you're better than that. But I think you're onto something. For me, the medicine is more of the unconditional love and actually letting myself, not as I've watched myself do with you a couple times now, kind of change the subject or say something else or fluff over it really quickly, and not just be in the receptivity of, okay, can I love myself exactly as I am?
Yeah. It's an interesting concept. I know. I mean, I've had a ton of conversations with people just reflecting back to them, like their beauty and their love and their grace and their all the things that they are. That it's fast. I mean, it's happened to me. I know, like in our ceremonies, we do these things called an appreciation circle.
Yeah.
And
The end of our stuff too, usually.
yeah, and so you put somebody in the middle, and everybody just gets to reflect back to them, and it's usually, I mean, especially here in town, right? There's a balance between people that know and people that don't, and so it's always fascinating to experience those,
Yeah, it is. And I think this might be an interesting place to end, because I know we're close here.
Okay.
But you mentioned, the work that you and Mary are doing in the ceremonies, and the way you've been able to come in and just hold space, and that there have been a number of people who have come up to you and been quite emotional with what they experienced you doing, which was a novice might look at it and see nothing. You're not doing anything. You're just there.
Yeah.
You're being that. Are you open to sharing a bit of what you shared with me before we hit record, of that woman that came up to you and sort of what that looked like and what she reflected?
Yeah, it was really, I mean, the whole experience for me was really fascinating experience in presence. And because Mary asked me, like, hey, I want you to come facilitate with me, sit next to me and all that. And we've co-code together before, but this was the first time like we co-led with, well, like I said, a couple of our other friends. And I just trusted her that just who I was in that moment, for her to make that ask of me was enough.
Yeah.
And so there were moments of doubt, I guess, but I knew I wouldn't have been asked to do this if I wasn't okay in that moment of who I am. And so I just showed up the way I wanted to show up. And as part of our ceremonies, like, we'll do healings, and so there's a time we orient them, the whole ceremony, around the directions, right? So traditional Native Mesoamerican structure. And we were doing healings, and the first woman that came up to me was married, got a couple kids. She was there by herself, and we just dropped in, and the first thing out of her mouth was, I just want to be seen by a man, right? And I've shared with you before, like, it really took me back to the Desire on Fire event that you held, of just really, I mean, because we're like, super close together.
Yeah, you are.
And it took me back to that moment of like just dropping into her energy and her spirit and all those things, to like share, to watch her. I mean, we did literally just sat there for a few minutes.
Yeah.
And then she started crying, and then started talking about some things.
In my experience in the work that I've done, and I've done a lot of this work, that's as close to a universal concept as I've seen.
Yeah.
The feminine longs to be seen by the masculine, or a woman longs to be seen by a man, as she really is. And the difference between being catcalled on the street, right, and being really fully seen the whole way, is, the difference between, the whole universe, and what that allows for her. If she's enabled, she's assisted to feel safe and cared for, safe and cherished, safe and appreciated and loved, even, her whole system opens, and then she becomes the medicine, right? Back to full circle, what we said at the beginning. The containment that creates the field and the opportunity and the frame for the medicine to come through.
Yeah, it's super fascinating because I never want Mary to feel that way. And so I make an effort to drop in with her to ensure that I'm not. And so or that I'm seeing her and presencing and supporting and all those things, which, to my own admission, I haven't done well until, recently.
Right.
But yeah, my heart broke for this woman in that moment, and even for her husband.
Yeah.
Oh, right. I hope there's, part of this. And it's really been interesting to be in the ceremony space because our next ceremony, we have women that were in our last one that now they're bringing their husbands or bringing their partners.
Cool.
Just beautiful to see.
I love that, man.
Yeah.
I'm so passionate about that. Imagine, couples medicine work. Come on.
Right on.
It was one of my favorite things when I used to facilitate with my ex-fiance as well.
Yeah.
Just something that the man and the woman facilitator are able to hold, the archetypes and the projections of, God, goddess, mother, father, all the things. What a field. So we have to stop talking now.
Okay.
And we could keep talking forever, I feel like. But thank you, brother, for the work that you're doing, for the work that you've done to become the man that you are, to become the pillar that you are in our community, and for you and Mary to have polarized each other and to be in connection in the work that you're doing together. Is there anything, I know you guys do, it's mostly, private work and that kind of stuff. Is there anything that you would like to draw attention to or just sort of name or speak to as far as anything that you are doing or that you guys are doing or anything like that? Beautiful, man. So yeah, you guys know me. I'm Michael Bates. My website is my name, MIKAALBATES. .com if you're interested in the work that I'm doing or any of this kind of stuff. Also, thekingscode.org is the website for the men's initiatory rites I'm doing here. DesireOnFire.com is the women, Amy and Ali, their work. It's incredible work. What an honor, man, to be here with you. And again, just truly humbled and grateful to be in community with you. And let's do this again sometime.
I know.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
Be well. Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.